So has India managed to successfully flatten the curve? That's the big question on everyone's mind who's sitting at home right now and worried about the situation of coronavirus in country. Let me first tell you what the curve is. The curve is the number of people who are tested positive each day for coronavirus in a country when plotted in a graph. And it's important that we flatten the curve to arrest the rise in number of cases and spread of the deadly disease. If you look at India's curve, we're not doing too well and the curve is steadily rising. To study the curve further, remember it's divided into two phases. The first phase, of course, is the time taken for a country to report first 100 cases and the time taken after that. India took approximately 3 months, ladies and gentlemen, to report 100 cases. But since then, India only took about 10 days for that rise in number of cases to multiply by 4 times. So that hasn't augured well for India. The graph currently not looking too good. But also remember, these are very initial days for us to determine whether the rise in graph is going to be steady and the number is going to rise at a staggering rate or not. If you look at other countries that are in the same boat as India, it's the US, France, Italy, among other countries that are currently juggling with the rising steady number of coronavirus cases. But these countries are reporting cases in thousands and thousands. India is still at about 600 mark. But these are not the countries that we must learn from. We must learn from countries that have already reported a very high number and have been able to successfully flatten the curve. Which are these countries? The countries such as Japan. When the cases were first being initially reported, Japan took about good few weeks to report first 100 cases. In fact, the rise was at about 13% to report for first 100 cases, and since then it's been rising at about 8.1%. So Japan has successfully flattened the curve. Singapore has done the same. In fact, China, the country from where coronavirus initially came up or originated, has flattened the curve. You look at that Chinese graph and it tells you how the number of positive patients is hovering at over 81,000 right now. So the Chinese government has been able to successfully mitigate the situation. Another country that we can learn from is South Korea. And if you look at the graph of South Korea, it's done extremely well. In fact, it's come out as a model country for other countries to follow as far as its fight against coronavirus is concerned. Now, if you study deeply the progress made by South Korean government between end of February and early March, the number of cases rose from hundreds to thousands. The highest number of cases that South Korean government reported was on February 29th, on a single day where 900 people and over were tested positive. But since then, the country has done extremely well. It halved that number in next 10 days and it further halved over next 4 days. How did the South Korean government do it? The following steps were taken by the Korean government. Social and physical distancing, number one. Ensuring that there is enough contact tracing, isolating those people who have been either tested positive or have been in touch with those who have been tested positive. And fourth, by the overwhelming support of the people of South Korea. So the 4 steps, of course, apart from testing, and testing. In fact, South Korea was the first country to come out and say that if you cannot see your enemy, you cannot fight it. And therefore they tested and tested. That's the theory they lived by and were able to successfully flatten the curve, something that the Indian government can also learn from. Now, India is not going through the testing approach right now because we do not have enough testing kits in India. We're still procuring them. We're making them in-house now. We've given, in fact, the first few tenders have been rolled out to a Pune-based company. So we're still getting there. But remember, we've taken the physical distancing and social distancing approach. The government of India has announced a complete lockdown for next 21 days or 3 weeks. The ICMR, or the Indian Council for Medical Research, says that if we are able to distance ourselves physically and socially, we may just be able to contain the spread by about 62%. 62%, that's a huge number, ladies and gentlemen, and all that we have to do is stay away and stay indoors. Stay away from our neighbors and community members and stay indoors as much as possible.